Okay, here we go. So I'm going to show you guys a quick trick here. This is a really good one. Click them up, click and close all the way. Have a look up here. Come forward if you can. Okay, so we're going to start the show off here. Let's do a quick practice problem, long division practice problem. Okay, because that's what we talked about the day before yesterday. It's a big process. Okay, but the good news is there's something good is coming out of this practice problem. We're going to come up with a really good trick for making some division problems much, much easier. It doesn't work all the time, and I'll tell you when it works and when it doesn't work. But when it does, it's a great idea. So if we're going to make this into a division problem, what goes where?
You're going to want the numerator goes underneath.
Good.
Outside.
Okay, numerator's inside, right?
I'm a liar. I'm a liar. Brody, can you hold it to your head like you're JJ, put like your console.
Yeah, that's.
I don't think his little baby hands will reach back there.
Try to.
Come on. You're the pussy.
I just.
What?
What?
What? Did you say curse? Did you just say
Okay, here we go. I'm recording right now.
Oh. Oh.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah, whoops.
Get a bigger vocabulary.
Okay, so
Demonetized.
let's go here. So now we want to divide this out. What do we do first? I've written out the problem using long division. I got the template. How do I start things?
You're going to want to take the 2 and apply it to the other side one. The first 2. Not that, no. That. Yeah.
Okay, almost.
What? Oh, 2x? No, actually the whole thing, don't you?
I'm going to divide the whole leading term on the inside by the leading term on the outside, right? So what is 2x to the 4th divided by x?
2x cubed.
Right? So that's the first term in my answer, 2x cubed. And then remember that whenever we get a new term on the top, we're just going to multiply by what's out front, by the denominator, right? And we'll distribute. So 2x cubed times x is 2x to the 4th. 2x cubed times 2 is 4x cubed. And then we're going to subtract the whole thing, right? So when we subtract the whole thing, the 2x to the 4ths cancel. We know that's got to happen, right? Because every time we do this, we're gonna remove at least one term, so the polynomial keeps getting smaller and keep getting closer to the end, right? We know that we've built this thing so we have a column for every power of x, so the x cubes line up. So when I subtract vertically, I know I'm getting x cubes, but what is 3 minus 4? Negative 1. So I get negative 1x cubed, right? And then I just bring the rest of the stuff straight down. I'm just subtracting 0 from the other stuff, right? And we start over. Okay, so now we've got negative x cubed divided by x. Equals negative x squared, good, and so that's our next term, right? Get a term on top, and so I distribute by what's out front. Negative x squared times x is negative x cubed. Negative x squared times 2 is negative 2x squared, and I'll subtract the whole thing again. The x cubes cancel, the negative x cubes cancel. Here I've got x squared, what's negative 1 minus negative 2?
Positive.
No.
Positive.
So
X squared.
positive,
X squared.
yeah, positive 1, good. So I just get positive x squared, right? Because negative 1, subtracting a negative is adding. So that's just saying negative 1 plus 2 is positive 1, right? So I wouldn't write it, but technically there's a 1 there, right? And then I bring the rest of the stuff down, and I go again. So now I've got x squared divided by x equals, next term is x. Okay, so I distribute
The 2.
Or no, the x.
Okay, so anyway, so I distribute the x all the way through, and I get x squared plus 2x. I will, just a second. Sorry about this.
Maybe somebody could explain to me, so for, you know, this is two.
Just a second.
Somebody explain this to me. You know how it says right here? And how
Preach
like
to
you
us.
divide it by this? How did we get this, where did we get this from?
Because
You
you
multiply times it.
multiply it back through. What you get on top, you multiply it by x, so it's the same.
Okay, so you divide it by this,
Okay.
and then multiply it by what you got?
Yes.
So why even divide it?
To cancel, like to get rid of one of the, to get rid of the two.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so now we're gonna subtract again. So the x squared's canceled. Did you get your question answered, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
good,
by the.
good. Good. So we got x's, negative 1 minus 2 is
Negative 3.
-3, good, we bring down the -8. And now, look, we're getting close, right? Now we've got a -3x divided by x, good. And so we end up with -3, and now we know we're done with the polynomial part, right? Because the last term we could ever get in a polynomial is the constant. So it's been a lot of work, but at least we know this is the last go-round for doing this whole process, right? So we distribute the -3 through. What do you mean?
So in the first step.
Because you times it by x, which
3
increases its power.
Yeah, right, I'm multiplying the 2x cubed
Yeah, by
by
that.
x and by 2. 2x cubed times 2 is 4x cubed. Right? Okay?
So you multiply the first one just by the x. and then
No, you every time you get a term up here, you're gonna distribute it to the whole polynomial out front.
Okay.
Right, so we distributed the 2x cubed times the x and got 2x to the fourth. 2x cubed times 2 is plus 4x cubed. And that's all we could do, we only had 2 terms. And so then we subtracted vertically.
Okay, we found out where it's left.
Yep, and then we start over, okay? So now we're on the last cycle here. We're gonna take our -3 times x plus 2, right? So what's that gonna give us? We're gonna get -3 times x is -3x. -3 times 2 is -6.
You add
And we're going to subtract the whole thing. Well, notice that the 3x's cancel.
2x, I mean 2, -2.
So I get -8 plus 6 minus -6 gives me -2. Well, that's my remainder then, right? Okay, so how do we interpret this? So what's our quotient equal to? Well, we've got the polynomial part, which is right here.
Something's funny. What?
Whoa, calm down. What are you doing? Hey.
Mr. Oya, did you hear what Travis said?
What's that?
He said, we're reacting this way, like, when you did when you found out that it was a time.
Exactly, yeah.
Like it's literally
That was a beautiful
two.
day. That was a
It's
beautiful
two
day.
on the thing. There's like 3 options.
I just never used it before. So notice that my denominator, we know that's x plus 2, and the remainder is what remains.
On top.
I just said it the other day.
You did?
Remainder is what remains
On top.
over the denominator, right? Did I maybe say that the other day?
No, you.
Did I forget to do that 7th period? Oh.
Yeah.
Can we do it now?
Can we do it now? Let's do
Yeah,
it now.
okay. The remainder is what remains
Over the
over the denominator. The remainder is what remains over the denominator. So there's our answer, right?
Yep,
Okay, there's the polynomial part and there's the remainder. That's a lot of work though, isn't it?
that's a ton of work.
Wouldn't it be nice if there were an easier way to do that?
Yes.
Are you setting something up? Mr.
I'm
Oya?
setting something up, you got it. You know me pretty well.
You told us.
I did tell you.
Hey,
Just.
Okay, so there it is, right? Okay, so here's the trick. Oh, whoops, I think I deleted something. That was a negative 8, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. So synthetic division only works. I'm going to show you a great trick. It's called synthetic division, but here's what you got to remember about it. Synthetic division only works when you divide by a linear factor. So in other words, if you've got like x minus something on the bottom. So here we've got x minus negative 2, right? It doesn't work if you end up with like an x squared on the bottom, okay? And for our purposes, we won't even do it like if we have something like 3x plus 2 on the bottom. Because then you have a fractional 0, and I'm not going to take you guys through that. If you want to see it, I'll show you how to do it. Like, you know, kind of come up and ask me a question, I'll show you how to do it. Because it's interesting. I teach it like the honors class, I have them do a bunch of problems with it. But it's such a pain to do that I don't make everybody do it. I won't give it to you on a test. But if you want to see it, I will show you. Come on up and I'll show it to you. Okay, so here's how synthetic division works. You set it up, you make a bracket. You make a big L-shaped bracket, then you leave room for 2 rows in the bracket. Okay, here's the key players in this. First of all, the number that's going to go out in front of the bracket, kind of up above in the first row out in front of the bracket, is always going to be the 0 of the denominator. So if I set the bottom equal to 0, like in this case, if I set x plus 2 equal to 0, what's the solution? Negative 2, right? So out in front, we're going to put a negative 2, okay? The coefficients of, I think I got my 8 got erased again, but all of the coefficients are going to get lined up in order in the first row inside the bracket. So what are my coefficients in order of the numerator? 2, just the numbers, 2,
Negative 8.
okay? And underneath the constant goes our remainder box. Okay, now let's watch how this works. It's really simple. So all you do with synthetic division is you're going to drop the first number straight down underneath the bracket. So the 2 goes out underneath the bracket. Anytime a number appears below the bracket, you always multiply that number times the 0. So 2 times negative 2 is what?
Negative 4.
Okay, negative 4, and we're going to pop that up into the next slot in the next column. And then with regular division, we subtract vertically. With synthetic division, we do the opposite, we add. So 3 plus negative 4 is,
Negative 1.
okay, I got a new number, so what do I do?
Times by the negative 2.
Times by negative 2, which is
Negative 3. No, 0.
2, plus negative 1. 1 times negative 2 is
That we were adding.
plus. Okay. Negative 3 times negative 2,
Negative
6.
6.
Plus.
Bad.
And what do we get? Okay, so can you find those numbers anywhere?
I can't.
See that? Look, those are the coefficients. The numbers to the left of the remainder box are the coefficients of the polynomial part of our answer, and the number in the remainder box is the remainder. Cool, right? That makes it so simple. This is really fast and easy. Okay, so let's try one of these. Let's try this guy. Okay, so you tell me now. Let's make our bracket.
2 goes on the outside.
Okay, so let's see. So Gabe, what number goes outside?
Gabe, get your earbuds out.
Got a question for you. What number goes outside? Okay, why don't you close that up and take a look. Help them out here. What number goes outside?
2.
2. So the 0 of the denominator goes out front. Okay? Coefficients. What coefficients are going to go here then?
1.
So I got a 1.
2. Negative 2. Negative 1.
Okay, we forgot one.
Don't forget the box.
We forgot one.
And the imaginary number.
Yeah, we needed a 0 there. Right, I got that in the wrong place.
Yeah, because we don't have the 3.
Okay, we're missing the x cubed term, so we need to have a 0 for x cubed, because we have to have a column for every power of x, just like we did with long division, right? Okay, so now, if I bring this straight down, I get a 1. Times 2 is 2, right?
2,
Add those and I get 2.
4,
Times 2 is 4.
6,
Plus 2 is 6.
12,
Times 2 is 12.
10,
Plus negative 2 is 10.
20, 19.
Times 2 is 20. When I add those up, I get 19. Okay, so you tell me then, what is going to be my answer?
Squared.
10x.
Okay, so, right, so now, it's, the hard part of this is knowing, well, where do I start? So here's my recommendation, always count backwards. Because you know that the number next to the remainder box is always gonna be the constant, and we're just gonna work our way up to bigger powers of x. So this is the constant, that's the coefficient of x, that's the coefficient of x squared, that's the coefficient of x cubed, that's the coefficient of x to the 4th, to the 5th, if they were there, right? But we don't have those, so we stop at x cubed, right? So then we end up with x cubed plus 2x squared plus 6x
Plus 10.
plus 10,
19.
right? Plus 19 divided by,
X subtract 2.
that's it, right? So that is our
That's
answer,
too easy.
right? Pretty easy.